On March 9th, 2025, about an hour before I planned to lock up, a Tundra rolled into my bay with the heater blowing lukewarm and a faint sweet smell drifting out of the vents. The owner was not panicking. He was almost apologetic. He said the truck had been running a touch hot on the highway and he had noticed the coolant kept dropping, so he had been topping it off himself to be responsible. He handed me a folded dealership estimate. New radiator, new water pump, full system flush, diagnostic, labor, tax. Just under $2,000. Today, I am revealing why that truck did not need most of that repair, why the real damage was self-inflicted by a mistake almost every Toyota owner makes without knowing it, and how a $5 habit prevents a $1,900 bill. Because here is the part that made my stomach drop when I popped the cap. This was not bad luck. This was not a worn-out truck. This was a slow-motion chemistry accident, and the owner caused it with the best intentions in the world. I have been turning wrenches on Toyotas for over 2 decades, and I can tell you the cooling system is the single most misunderstood part of these trucks. People obsess over oil. They argue about gas. They will spend an hour online debating tire brands. But coolant? Coolant is the fluid everybody ignores until steam is coming off the hood. And Toyota owners specifically fall into a trap that owners of almost no other brand fall into, because Toyota did something most people never learned about. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Your Toyota does not use normal antifreeze. Since 2004, Toyota switched the entire lineup over to a coolant called Super Long Life Coolant, the pink stuff, and it is not the same chemistry as the green coolant your dad poured into his Chevy, and it is not the same as the universal works in any vehicle jug sitting on the shelf at every parts store in the country. That pink fluid is a phosphate organic acid formula. In plain English, it protects aluminum in a very specific way, using phosphate inhibitors that coat the metal almost instantly, and it deliberately leaves out one ingredient that most other coolants contain: silicates. That missing ingredient is the whole story. Toyota leaves silicates out on purpose because the water pump in your truck uses a ceramic seal, and silicates are abrasive to that seal. They are like fine sand circulating through the one part you cannot afford to wear down. So when somebody pours in a silicate-loaded green or universal coolant, they are not just using the wrong color. They are running sandpaper through the water pump every time the engine turns over. And nobody told them. Nobody ever tells them. That Tundra owner did exactly what 9 out of 10 Toyota owners do. He saw the level was low, he drove to the parts store, he grabbed a jug of the cheapest coolant that said it was safe for all makes and models, and he topped it off. He did it twice. He thought he was being smart. He thought he was saving a trip to the dealer, and the entire time he was quietly destroying his own cooling system. Let me explain exactly what happens, because this is where it gets ugly. When you pour the wrong coolant into Toyota's pink fluid, the two chemistries do not blend into a happy compromise. They fight. Mix pink phosphate organic acid coolant with green inorganic coolant, and the additives react, drop out of suspension, and start forming a GEL. A thick, sludgy GEL. That GEL does not stay in one place. It circulates. It collects in the narrowest passages it can find, and the narrowest passages in your truck are the radiator tubes and the tiny serpentine channels inside the heater core. So it clogs them. Coolant stops flowing where it needs to flow. The engine starts running hot on the highway under load, and the heater stops blowing hot air because the core is choked with sludge. That sweet smell I noticed in the cab? That was the heater core beginning to weep. That lukewarm air from the vents? The core was so restricted the coolant could barely move through it. But the gelling is only half the damage. The other half is invisible, and it is worse. When coolant chemistry is wrong, or when it has simply never been changed and the corrosion inhibitors are worn out, the fluid starts to conduct electricity. It becomes an electrolyte, like the acid inside a battery. And every modern vehicle has tiny stray electrical currents looking for a path to ground. Normally, healthy coolant resists that current, but contaminated, degraded, or wrong chemistry coolant invites it. The current starts flowing through the fluid, and it eats the softest metal it can find. In a Toyota, that is the aluminum, the radiator, the heater core, the water pump, the passages inside the cylinder head. This process is called electrolysis, and it is brutal. It does not cause one big leak. It causes dozens of microscopic pinholes, eating the metal from the inside out until the radiator and heater core look like they were sandblasted from within. That Tundra had both problems at once: gelled passages from the mixed coolant and the early stages of electrolysis pitting the radiator. The dealer was not entirely wrong that it needed a radiator and a water pump. But here is what they did not say. If the owner had simply used the correct coolant from the start, none of it would have happened. They quoted him to replace the damage. They did not quote him to understand it. And understanding it is the only thing that keeps it from happening again on the next truck and the next. Think about it like blood type for a second. You cannot put just any blood into any person and expect everything to be fine. The body reacts. The wrong type triggers a cascade that does real harm, even though the fluid looks roughly the same going in. Coolant is the same. The color on the jug is marketing. The chemistry underneath is what your aluminum has to live with for the next 100,000 miles. Now here is where I need to be honest with you, because there are actually two versions of this mistake, and most owners are guilty of at least one. The first is the wrong coolant, which we just covered. The second is just as common and even sneakier. Toyota's pink coolant comes pre-mixed. It is already cut 50-50 with deionized water at the factory. That is not an accident, and it is not laziness. It is the correct ratio with the correct water that has had its minerals stripped out. So when an owner buys the pre-mixed pink, then tops it off with tap water from the garden hose because the level looked a little low, they think they are diluting it harmlessly. They are not. Tap water is full of minerals, calcium, magnesium, dissolved metals. Those minerals are exactly what feeds electrolysis, and exactly what builds scale inside the engine. You took a perfectly balanced fluid and poisoned it with the garden hose. I have seen cooling systems with white, crusty scale built up inside that all started with somebody topping off with tap water on a hot afternoon. And there is a third, quieter sin layered underneath both of these. Most Toyota owners never change their coolant at all. The pink stuff earned a reputation for lasting forever, and the name literally says super long life, so people assume it is permanent. It is not. The first change interval is around 100,000 miles or 10 years, and then roughly every 50,000 miles after that. After the first interval, those phosphate inhibitors are spent. The fluid that was protecting your aluminum becomes the fluid that conducts current and corrodes it. Old pink coolant is not protecting anything. It is just colored water waiting to attack metal. There is even a detail that catches people who think they did everything right. If you top off your pink system with the older Toyota red coolant, the truck will run, and Toyota historically said they were compatible. But the moment you mix them, you lose the super long life rating. The organic acids in the pink get diluted by the older additives, and the whole system quietly drops back to a 2-year service interval without telling you. So you think you are protected for a decade, and you are actually protected for 2 years. That gap is exactly where the expensive damage lives. So let me give you the part the dealer estimate never includes: the prevention. It is almost insultingly simple. Use only Toyota Super Long Life Coolant, the genuine pink, or a true equivalent that is explicitly a phosphate organic acid formula with no silicates and that is labeled for Asian vehicles. Buy it pre-mixed and never add concentrate or water to the pre-mixed jug. If you ever absolutely must top off in an emergency and have nothing else, use distilled water, never tap water, and only enough to get you home. Then flush and refill properly. Change the coolant on the actual schedule, first around 100,000 miles, then every 50,000, instead of treating it as a fluid that lasts forever. And if you take your truck to a quick lube place, watch what they pour, because the universal jug on their shelf is the #1 source of this exact failure. They are not malicious. They just stock one coolant for every car that comes through the door, and your Toyota is the one car that cannot tolerate it. A jug of the correct pink coolant costs you a few dollars more than the universal stuff. That is the entire price of avoiding this. A few dollars at the counter versus a radiator, a water pump, a heater core, and a flush. A heater core replacement alone can mean pulling the entire dash apart, which is why that single part can carry a 4-figure labor bill on some trucks. The math is not close. And here is why the industry rarely frames it this way. There is no profit in telling you to buy the right $5 jug. There is no labor to bill on a correct top-off. The money is in the radiator, the pump, the flush, the dash-out heater core job. A mechanic who explains coolant chemistry for 10 minutes earns nothing. A mechanic who replaces the cooling system earns $1,900. That does not make every shop dishonest. Most are just diagnosing the damage in front of them and quoting the repair. But almost none of them stop to ask the only question that matters, which is what got poured in here and how do we keep it from happening again. That Tundra owner did need a radiator. I will not pretend he did not, but he did not need the panic, and he did not need to ever be in that bay in the first place. I flushed the system completely, cleared the gel, installed the correct pink coolant, and showed him the empty universal jug still sitting in his garage that started all of it. He stood there a little stunned, somewhere between relieved and angry. Relieved that it was understandable. Angry that nobody, in all his years of owning Toyotas, had ever explained the one fluid rule that could have saved him the entire repair. That is the feeling I want you to avoid. Because your Toyota is built to run for hundreds of thousands of miles, and the cooling system is more than capable of going the distance. It does not fail from age nearly as often as it fails from the wrong fluid poured in with good intentions. The pink coolant is not a suggestion, it is a specification. Respect the chemistry and the system protects itself for years. Ignore it, top off with whatever was cheapest at the counter, and you are not saving money. You are prepaying for a repair you have not been quoted for yet. So before you ever top off your coolant, before you let a shop pour in their universal jug, before you assume the pink stuff lasts forever, check the label, use the right fluid, and use distilled water if you ever use water at all. $5 of attention now is $1,900 you never spend later. If this changed the way you think about that pink fluid, hit like, so more Toyota owners see it before they make the mistake. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns that keep your truck on the road and your money in your pocket. And if you have ever caught a shop about to pour the wrong coolant into your Toyota, or paid the price because nobody warned you, drop it in the comments. Those stories save other people real money. Because the most expensive coolant is never the right one in the bottle. It is the wrong one already in your engine.